to make an increase in taxation, to explain in detail and repeatedly where it's coming from, and secondly, why it's being levied and where it's going to. Now, I'm certain, I know about the suspicion, which is a good discipline. Labour has got to accommodate this suspicion and say, look, we're being absolutely out front and we can demonstrate the veracity, the truth of the integrity of what we're saying by indicating to you in very strong and clear terms who we are taxing, what we are taxing, and why we're doing it, and where we're going to spend it. It's very, very important. And why we're doing it and where we're going to spend it is very, very important.
How serious a threat do you think a Corbyn-led party to the left of Labour is going to be?
Well, I understand they're having a bit of difficulty overthinking up a name. And
do you think a Corbyn-led party to the left of Labour is going to be?
Well, I understand they're having a bit of difficulty overthinking up a name. And I, in a comradely way, I'd suggest one. It would be the Farage Assistance Group. Because the reality is, and everybody knows, in a comradely way, I'd suggest one. It would be the Farage Assistance Group. Because the reality is, and everybody knows it, a division in the anti-conservative, capital C or small c, anti-right-wing vote can only assist the parties of the right, the Conservatives especially now, under Mrs. Badenoch, and under Farage, the Reform Party. So the splintering, fragmentation, offered by a new party of the left, as they say, I've got my doubts about that, but of the left, can only be of assistance to the enemies of Labour, of the working class, the people who have no means of sustaining themselves other than the sale of their labour by hand and by brain, and can only be of benefit to the egos of those who are running such a party. And they haven't decided who should do that yet either.
Yes, well, this is a great history of ultra-left parties, isn't it? They splinter. But you did have to face yourself. You're famous for facing down the militant tendency.
Yeah.
And you took it seriously. Yeah. Should Starmer take this as seriously? I mean, he's been directing his fire at Reform recently, but maybe he needs to look to his left as well. Yes,
I don't think Keir should worry himself too much about Reform or about Corbyn, because he's the Prime Minister, he'd be punching down. But there are other people throughout the party who should be taking Corbyn and Reform very seriously. One, because of the power of seepage of votes in crucial seats away from the Labour Party, which in our first-past-the-post system is particularly damaging. And secondly, because Reform and the Conservatives are the natural enemy of progressives in any case, and also sailing under false flags. I mean, here's Farage. A couple of weeks ago, Farage was down in South Wales saying he wanted to reopen the pits, coal mines, and that he wanted to restart the blast furnaces in Port Talbot Steelworks. Now, as it happens, totally by coincidence, when I was a student for 5 or 6 years, I worked in the steelworks. I worked on the blast furnaces. My father was a blast furnaceman. The idea of restarting a blast furnace is the other side of impossible. I mean, it's ridiculous. And reopening a coal mine, my father was a blast furnaceman. The idea of restarting a blast furnace is the other side of impossible. I mean, it's ridiculous. And reopening a coal mine would not just be perilous, it would be lethal. So either Farage knows that and is deliberately lying, or he doesn't know it and he's extremely stupid.
You called him the enemy. That's quite a strong term for him.
Yeah, they are the enemy. Yeah.
In what way?
I mean, well, they're poseurs. I mean, you just got to look at them and listen to them to know that they're following the classic path of, first of all, finding and harvesting grievance, resentment, division. Then secondly, finding someone to blame. It can be the metropolitan elite, so-called, but it can be other groupings in society, pointing the fingers all the time. Then you have to offer very simplistic responses, never answers, to very complex problems. And then hope that people are so brassed off with the conditions in which they're living, and I'd say with some justification, that you can harvest that grievance, offer some culprits, groupings in society, pointing the fingers all the time. Then you have to offer very simplistic responses, never answers, to very complex problems. And then hope that people are so brassed off with the conditions in which they're living, and I'd say with some justification, that you can harvest that grievance, offer some culprits for electoral punishment, and backed up, for instance, by a kind of invented history that says there was a time when our country was great and feared and respected, and that's been sacrificed and sabotaged by the metropolitan elite and this group and that group. And you can then get people, not for the first time in history, to believe the glibness. Now, it's happened before, it can happen again, and we've got to prevent it. One of the ways
When you say before,
investing your money into AI stocks is completely out of your control. You're at the mercy of the market. But what if I told you there was a much
before,
when it's happened before, it happened in Europe in the 1930s, in this country in the 1930s.
You're thinking about Mosley and...
Yeah, I'm not accusing Reform of being fascist. Of course, they're not that. But they are using, consciously or unconsciously, a similar playbook, and it's very Reform of being fascist. Of course, they're not that. But they are using, consciously or unconsciously, a similar playbook, and it's very dangerous.
Can I